Welcome, my name is Teuvo.
And I'm Alex.
You're listening to the Real CDA podcast,
where we focus on Coeur d'Alene,
Idaho, and the Inland Northwest, progressive politics, culture,
and community.
Sweet. This week, our episode is sponsored by Soul Cafe. Have you been to Soul Cafe, Alex?
No, where is it?
Oh my God, it's on Northwest Boulevard, across from the college. You ever been to Cafe Carambola?
Yeah.
Next door to that.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Soul Cafe offers 2 different soups every day.
I love soups.
Oh my God, 1 vegetarian, 1 meat. Oh my God, again.
So what else do they have?
So they have like basically 2. So the owner's name is Susan. It's absolutely amazing, and she cooks 2 fresh soups every day. So you can go in there and never have the same thing. Basically.
Oh no, I have been there. That place is delicious.
See?
Yes.
Oh, it's the
all
hidden
handmade.
joint.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that place. It's so yeah, you can stop in. It's affordable. Look it up on Facebook. 150 plus 5-star reviews.
Can't be wrong.
We love Soul Cafe.
Yeah, we do.
Check it out. Hi guys, this week we're talking with Rebecca Schroeder about running for the state house in Idaho. And I'm Teuvo Orjula.
And I'm Alex.
So Rebecca, hello, hi.
Hello, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate this.
Glad to have you on.
It's pretty exciting. This is the first time we're actually recording audio we might share with the public.
Our first actual recording.
I'm kind of nervous.
I'm the first.
Definitely.
That's so exciting.
My hands are a little sweaty.
It feels like the first time.
But yeah, so let's just talk about you a little bit. Where are you from, Rebecca?
I was born in Grangeville, Idaho, and raised in Koosky, which is a small town in central Idaho. I went all through public Idaho school there and graduated in 1996. I went to college at U of I, and I've been here in Coeur d'Alene for about 12 years.
Cool.
That's awesome.
I don't think I've been to Koosky.
No.
We'll go to Koosky in the spring and hit up some whitewater rafting.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Can you spell Koosky?
It's Kooskia.
Okay.
It's on the Nez Perce Reservation.
Cool.
Right.
Oh, okay. So it's like east of the Snake. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
Yeah, beautiful area.
Cool. So you are running for the State House of Idaho.
That's right. Yes, I'm running for a seat in the Idaho State Legislature in District 4.
Where's District 4 at for those people that don't know?
That basically is Coeur d'Alene proper. So that's representing Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
What are the basic boundaries of that area?
Yeah, so it's in the north, it's bounded by Prairie and 95. So
Okay.
if you're within that or south of there, then you're in District 4.
Gotcha. I didn't know when I came here.
Yeah, and there are some funky little, gerrymandering going on, I think. But
Really?
you can look it up and see precisely what district you're in on the Idaho State Government website.
Okay.
I don't live in District 4. I actually live in District 3.
You can't even vote for her?
I know.
Damn.
I know.
You
Now
can
you
support
tell
me
me.
in other ways, Teuvo.
That's true. Why you're
Hosting
here.
podcasts.
That's
you
right.
know.
So, tell us, I mean, we know your story a little bit. I know your story. But for those people that don't know, you have been involved in the healthcare conversation because of your son for a long time. Tell us about that.
That's right. Yeah. My husband and I had our son Brady in 2007, and just a couple weeks after he was born, he was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, which is a rare genetic disease. And so I had gotten my bachelor's degree in chemistry, and so I started right away attending the big national medical conferences that were sponsored by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And that's really how I started getting tied in with the nonprofit organization that was funding most of the research for CF, as well as advocating for policies to support populations like kids with rare diseases. So after a few years, I held various roles there at the foundation, from fundraising chairs to advisory committee roles, but most near and dear to my heart has been the advocacy work that I've done there. I served as the Idaho State Advocacy Chair for several years before I moved into the National Advocacy Chair position, and that has been an experience. That has been an experience, really giving me the platform to interact with our Idaho lawmakers, both in Boise and in Washington, D.C. They know my family, they know me, they know our story.
So that means actually going to Washington then?
Right. Yeah. I go to Washington, D.C. and visit them on Capitol Hill probably 3 times a year for the last maybe 7 years.
Yeah.
And
What was the first time like?
oh, man, it's so intimidating. It's so intimidating. I mean, you want to talk about some sweaty palms and like you really feel nervous walking in there for the first time. But the CF Foundation actually did a wonderful job of preparing us for exactly what to expect and how to conduct those meetings. And so, I felt good, and I felt like, the needs of my son and having those potentially not met, that was far more scary to me and intimidating than, walking into this office. So
I can only imagine.
I got over it really quick. After the first meeting, everyone gets easier and easier. And by the end, you're like, yeah, you guys work for me. Like, listen up.
Yeah.
So did they make themselves available to you?
I'd say about 20% of the time I meet with an actual member.
Yeah.
The rest of the time it's their aides. Yeah, the aides have, we have a much better relationship.
Yeah.
Let's name drop. Who are we talking about here?
So I have met personally with like Raul Labrador several times, but he, I doubt, will ever meet with me again. Face to face. So his healthcare aide Becca is really my contact, and she's not a huge fan of mine either. So, but
what happened? What changed?
Well, post town hall,
Yeah.
we had a big face off in our last town hall here when all the healthcare reform legislation was dropping. And he didn't like that. And so the next time that I was in his office, I really felt like I was being set up.
Really?
Yeah.
I totally did. I mean, he didn't meet with me himself, and they knew that I was coming, and they were really ready to like paint me as this hysterical, unprofessional, which, I want to clarify that I have always served in a volunteer capacity for the foundation, and that I've never walked in any of those offices as a professional. I've walked in as a constituent, as a mother, as someone with some serious concerns. And, I understand that I have a fiery personality, but I think that, when things that they're supporting are threatening my child's ability to breathe, that is the perfect thing to get a little upset about.
Definitely.
I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'd see that'd be frustrating.
Right. So the healthcare aides, though, actually do like the vast majority of the actual work that's
I've always
done.
heard that.
Yeah.
So I don't really consider it a negative always that I'm meeting with the aides, because they are the ones that are actually, making all these things happen.
Yeah.
The members show up and like we grab a picture together, and I talk to them mostly about Brady, because I understand that if I want to get through to them at all, I have to make them feel something.
Yeah.
And we can talk about policy, and they know the policy, and they know the position of like the nonprofit world or the medical world on these policies, and they often choose to ignore it. So, my angle has always been to try to, get to them on a personal level. Like, they have kids, they have families, they've got to care about some of these things.
So after all these years, do you feel like a difference was made? Do you feel like your time was well spent?
I'm so proud of the time that I've spent at the CF Foundation, and it's incredibly important to me. That's my family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like the most catastrophic failure as an advocate for rare disease policy here in Idaho, because I feel like I've gotten nowhere. And, that is really the reason why I've stepped up to run, because I feel like there's nothing at this point that I could say or do or show them that would change the way that they're going to vote.
Wow. So why stay in Idaho as opposed to going to Washington when it comes to the health of your child, which must be an enormous weight on you?
Well, Alex, I'd be lying if, I didn't admit that we have considered that. Absolutely. I mean, Liberty Lake is just a short drive.
Stone's throw.
Exactly. Yes. But I was born and raised here in Idaho. My entire extended family, lives around the state. My husband was born and raised here. I love Idaho. I love Idaho. And it just was pissing me off to think about, giving my state over to these people that don't have the best interests, of the people in the state in mind. And I'm not going to let that happen. I love Idaho too much to let that happen.
I think it's also heartbreaking when you have people that can't stand up for themselves or don't have the power or the ability or the speaking connections or whatnot to actually make change as well. So it's awesome that you can step up and do that.
Well, I feel obligated to, I've had the opportunity to have these interactions and see what these people are really like. And so that motivates me a lot that, over half of children with cystic fibrosis depend on Medicaid, for example, as a source of coverage. So when I'm talking to them about something like Medicaid expansion, that's near and dear to my heart. So I feel really obligated to make sure that those kids that, aren't being heard have a voice. And I'm going to do everything I can to be that voice for them.
So I'm going to get deep on you here. So, you said you didn't step into those offices as a professional, but what is your personal diagnosis or sense or feeling about why our representatives like Raul can so blatantly ignore the needs of children like your son? What do you think's going on? Do you think it's outward pressure from, lobbyists? Do you think it's just a particular type of ideology that exists? Like, how do you think he could go 8 years looking you guys in the face and still not budge on his stance on the needs of your child?
All right. Well, I'm gonna start this off with, I am not gonna pretend for a second like I know what goes on in that man's head, because we have spent some time together, and I have tried. I mean, when I get ready to go into his office, I feel so nervous because I know, how much kids with cystic fibrosis in these families mean to me, and I'm thinking about every communication strategy I've ever learned, like how possibly there's got to be some shred of humanity that I can reach in him. And I have just failed miserably, like I said. And really, when you take a look at what is motivating his votes, I think that you have to take a look at where the money is coming from that finances individuals like Mr. Labrador. And from my perspective, it's, I am 100% sure that he is definitely not motivated by the needs of regular, Idaho folks. The policies that he's voting for don't touch him. They don't impact him the way that they're going to impact just the regular working person in Idaho.
It's also a common theme around the country, and it's too bad that he won't make himself available to people and their actual constituents and see what their needs are.
That's so frustrating. I mean, I know over the last year, I would love to see numbers on how many phone calls they've received, for example. I know that exists.
It does.
That information exists, and I would love to see that, because I know that so many people are feeling just straight up ignored, and like those representatives are completely unreachable.
So
and it's so frustrating.
How do we give, I know you're here because you want to give voice to those people. Where are you at with that? You announced in couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. I announced, I had my press release in the paper, and currently in the business of meeting people in the district and fundraising. We're focusing a lot on social media and just having these conversations. We've got some great ideas for like education summits and youth outreach, and we have voter registration online now, so that's a great way to start a conversation with some people that it doesn't have to be about partisan politics. I just want people to get talking.
Yeah,
so I've been really busy just trying to put myself out there and writing on my blogs on my website and making videos. One of my goals with this entire run is actually to sort of share the process with regular folks.
Which is fascinating. It's like no one ever gets to see that.
Right. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing, but I'm learning as I go along.
We don't know what we're doing here either.
Well, and that's the thing. So I think that if we can demystify the process a little bit.
Yeah. Oh shit, I didn't hit record.
I was strangle you.
I think that's great.
Yeah, if we can demystify the process a little bit, then I think more people would be encouraged to run.
Yeah, and if so many people get involved, as someone who has watched your campaign is involved in it, it's like I think it's got to be inspiring to have so many people get involved with you, and be behind you and stuff. So
I was so scared when I decided to run. I mean, I'm just nervous and anxious about how I'm going to be received, but so far I gotta say it's incredibly humbling, like how much support and how many people are coming out of my neighborhood and my community that I didn't realize were there. Mm-hmm. And they are eager to support me, and I feel incredibly fortunate.
I mean, imagine that when you look at the policies of actual people and what they need, they support candidates, and like that's not mind-blowing, that's common sense.
Right. Right.
So since we're here, we're about Coeur d'Alene. I grew up in Coeur d'Alene. I love this place. It's do you think Coeur d'Alene is ready for a shift to the left? Do you think that, Coeur d'Alene hasn't elected a blue state House representative for like 15 or 20 years or something. So do you feel like this is a moment where we can make a change?
I think Coeur d'Alene is absolutely ready, because we're not that population that was there 20 years ago when we were a blue state. Mm-hmm. Those people are still there. I'm telling you, they are there. I don't think that this is going to be like a huge shift. I think this is going to be just more accurate representation of what we really are.
Yeah. So what do you think happened? Why do you think we went so far in the other direction? Idaho is considered one of the reddest states in the whole union.
I've heard people say that after a certain point, I don't know how it originally started, I guess. But after a certain point, I'm hearing from a lot of groups like teachers, for example, that they just felt like it was so hopeless that they just stopped turning out to vote, and then candidates stopped coming up and so many races go unopposed. And I think just kind of general apathy.
Yeah.
Which is heartbreaking.
Right.
Democracy only works when everyone's involved.
But right now, what is so exciting, I think, is that those policies are touching people's lives in a real way, that they are no longer apathetic. Like, people care in ways that they didn't before about things that they didn't, care about before. So I think it's really exciting to see people getting involved or involving themselves again, maybe after years of being out of the game, because now is the time.
I think there's a really cool, exciting energy happening around, like, politically for like the left side in Coeur d'Alene, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I met you guys. Exactly. I have met so many people, like people that I know I'm going to be friends with for the rest of my life, that I can't believe I didn't know until this year.
Yeah.
It's really been cool.
Thank you, Trump.
Yes.
It's the only time together.
Silver lining.
You're racist and hate you, but thank you.
You united us all.
That's right. We're gonna make something good out of this.
Amen.
Definitely.
So, we did touch on healthcare a little bit, but I just want to ask you just one more question about that. What do you? As you know, and as you're working hard we're working to expand Medicaid in Idaho. Maybe you can touch on some of the important points for people and tell them why we even have to extend Medicaid.
Right.
And tell them how they can help and what we need to do to get that on the ballot.
Right. So Idaho is one of only 18 states now that have not taken the Medicaid expansion. And that means when the Affordable Care Act was passed, they expanded the eligibility criteria for people to qualify for Medicaid, right? So you didn't have to be quite as poor, for example. And we as Idaho taxpayers are already paying. We're paying for Medicaid expansion. Okay, we are already paying for Medicaid expansion
through federal income tax.
Through federal taxes, and right now all of that money is going to other states for their Medicaid expansion.
So we're subsidizing other states.
That's exactly what we're doing.
With our tax dollars.
That's exactly what we're doing. And at the same time, we have a gap population in Idaho, which is those people that make too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but they don't make enough money to buy insurance coverage on the market. So
how far is that gap?
That gap is 78,000 Idahoans. That includes veterans and children and working individuals. And, that's the most important piece of this picture, is that money aside, which everything about expanding Medicaid makes sense economically. More importantly, we have these people that we could be taken care of with something we're already paying for. And, when you ask Medicaid recipients about the value of that, I mean, this is a life-saving, vital source of coverage for these people. States like Montana, our neighbors, have taken the expansion, and they have seen all of these benefits from it, in terms of health outcomes, in terms of revenue for the state. Jobs. I mean, there's nothing to lose here, and it's just a no-brainer. And that's been one of the most frustrating things for me is I advocate for something like Medicaid expansion with our Idaho lawmakers with all of this evidence behind it. And they're denying us
Well, it's
that
a no-brainer
opportunity.
if you have a brain.
Prerequisite.
So what's the politics here? What's the nitty gritty? Why did they deny it? Is it just a middle finger saying "fuck you, Obama"?
That is exactly what it is, Teuvo. I have heard them use the term revenge politics in meetings. They don't want to support anything that has Obama's name on it, and they would rather have Idaho go down in flames, and to hell with the people that get hurt by that. They're not going to support anything that has his name on it.
What's their stump speech, though, about defending their denial? What does Luke Malik say? I know he's someone that's had to come along and try to defend that
That's
position.
right. Yeah. His main defense is that there aren't enough providers that accept Medicaid in Idaho, and that there aren't going to be enough. Right. And that does not statistically pan out
So if
either.
we give you billions of dollars in cash, your state's going to be overwhelmed.
Yes. No.
Has that
Big
ever
problems.
happened to anyone?
Big problem.
We have too much money.
And he's even more wrong, because the people that really would benefit most from Medicaid expansion, I mean, rural hospitals and children's hospitals, for example, are funded through Medicaid dollars. I mean, that would be a huge infusion of money into those institutions that they desperately need. It is a no-brainer.
Okay, so we need to get this on the ballot, and how do we do that? What's the numbers?
Right. So and by we, I mean there's a nonprofit organization called Reclaim Idaho that is spearheading this effort, and you can learn all about them at medicaidforidaho.org. But there are hundreds of Idahoans right now that are working on gathering signatures to put Medicaid expansion on the ballot. So we have petitions that we go around, and our goal is we have to get 6% of signatures in all the districts in Idaho, which our goal is 56,000, I think, signatures statewide.
Okay.
We have until April something. I don't remember the exact date. April is the timeline that we need to achieve this by. So we have teams of people all over the state holding events, knocking on doors. I take the Medicaid expansion petition to the grocery store with me. I mean, I don't go anywhere without that thing.
To the bathroom?
Well, maybe no, ladies' room. A lot can happen in there. But no, I've had an overwhelmingly positive response.
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly positive.
So what's your pitch when you meet someone, and have you gotten any negatives? How do you deal with pushback? What are your your go-tos?
Well, I'm kind of old-fashioned, I guess. I like to stick with the facts and the numbers
Those
and
pesky facts.
Math and stuff.
Facts don't matter anymore,
our
Rebecca.
Post-fact society these days.
I've had, I asked Luke Malik to sign the petition actually in his town hall, and he said no. So, and that interaction is captured on video if you want to break down his response. But I try to stick to what I know and the positive that we could gain out of this. This is not about, this is not like we accept Medicaid expansion and then we stop improving healthcare forever.
Right.
This is a step. This is a solution right at our fingertips that we're already paying for. Why not? I mean, we must continue to evolve healthcare after
Definitely.
that. This is just one step, but it's infuriating.
Like the ACA was a step, and then it got dragged down and changed by a lot of moneyed interests, but it was a step in the right direction fundamentally.
Absolutely. And rare disease groups like the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation would completely agree with you, because before that, there were no law-binding protections for people with disabilities, for example.
Right.
And, insurers could legally discriminate against you if you were born with something like cystic fibrosis. There was
insane.
no way Brady would ever get healthcare on the market. The cystic fibrosis is one of those automatic disqualifiers. So, it's
Yeah, we have a pretty shitty leadership in Idaho, and we've had it for a long time. And today I was doing research on questions around healthcare, and I found this website, and I was going over, where we stand and all these different, wages and and I mean, it's just horrifying, and I want to get to that next. I want to talk about minimum wage because I know you wrote an article about it. But I mean, with healthcare, we need to fund healthcare. The system is broken in the sense that profit motivated healthcare does not work for the people.
No.
We have lots of examples how it works better in other countries when it's not profit motivated. Canada, for crying out loud, it's only an hour and a half away. I have plenty of friends there that love their Canadian health insurance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The only country in the developed world where 1 million people go bankrupt per year just from healthcare related costs.
That's insane. And, in Canada,
year.
you bring up Canada, people with cystic fibrosis in Canada live an extra decade of life expectancy.
Yeah.
That is
That's
a
insane.
staggering number.
That is staggering.
That is precisely about access to care. They don't face the same obstacles we do.
Yeah.
And I think about this question, I say, well, how can a country like America with the universities we have, and we pride ourselves on being the quote unquote greatest country in the world, which I think has been called into question as of late. But how can we have such a poor healthcare system that misses so many people and doesn't take care of children? I mean, we're arguing over CHIP right now, whether we should give kids healthcare. I mean, it's insane. It's like a horror movie. It's like the Twilight Zone, and you mix it into a ball and just shake it. But I think, how can a country like ours get to this place? And I come to this thought that profit motivated healthcare that we have is built upon the American idea that everything has to make profit, right? Everything we do. And if any legislation or if any regulation comes along that will slow down profit or will slow down, that's instantly considered evil and terrible.
Well,
and
exactly.
we have to actually go after that way of thinking. We have to create a greater sense of community. And so it's like it's okay if it will hurt industry a little bit in the short term because it's going to give children health care.
Exactly.
Well, I think the U.S. experiment, I would call it, is an example of capitalism run wild, where you have profits over people in every case that you want to look at.
Profits over people, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, and if you really want to make a system that a healthcare system that works for the people, I mean, you got to look at who is benefiting right now with the system that we have. We have like big pharma making money hand over fist. We have insurers making billions of dollars in profit. I mean, of course they don't want to lose out on that, and they are extremely powerful lobbyists, for example.
Yeah.
So, there is going to absolutely be some resistance if we're talking about changing like our big structure of healthcare. Those people are going to fight like hell to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, money in politics is a huge issue, and Bernie Sanders recently wanted to go on and give a huge town hall about healthcare, and he went to CNN, and they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And so he turned to some independent news sources, and they're going to do it through that. But they're beholden to the ad revenue from stuff they run ad-wise, and so they can't go against that dialogue, which is too bad.
It's just crazy. But I think, that's one of the things that I'm going to use to my advantage in my campaign, for example, is now, I have the ability to go live on Facebook or like put something on YouTube, or we have to keep sharing our own stories
Definitely.
here and without filters. I want people to hear directly from me.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is what this is all about. That's why I put a microphone in your face.
That's what it's about.
All right. Well, I want to move on to minimum wage. I think that's, you wrote
Let's
about
talk
it.
about
It's
it.
obviously a passion of yours. It's been something I've cared about a long time.
I've worked a lot of jobs for minimum wage here in
Right.
Idaho.
Yeah.
That's tough.
What was
Yeah.
your first job?
My very first job, like babysitting probably, but then I
Yeah.
worked at the grocery store in Stites, Idaho, which is like 219 people or something.
I've never heard
And
of
BFE.
that.
I worked in the deli, so.
Oh,
But I worked as a server, I worked as
Which is not even minimum wage.
not
You
even
get-
minimum,
Yeah.
right? So I worked, in retail, lots of minimum wage jobs through college, and
yeah.
it's a crisis. I mean, we have a large percentage of people living in Idaho in poverty that are working full-time jobs.
So one of the statistics you referenced is actually that Idaho is in the top, I think, 5 of the highest percentage of minimum wage jobs.
That's right. Like, so of all the jobs in Idaho, we have the biggest, number of those jobs that are minimum wage, the highest percentage.
Yeah.
So that's, and then pair that with the lowest minimum, it's the federally mandated minimum wage of $7.25 an hour. And those two things in combination really result in this huge population of working poor. Right. So yeah, the minimum wage is $7.25, and according to this report, the actual living wage, this was done by an organization called Families Out of Balance, and this data is from 2014. But the living wage, they break down the budget categories like food, housing, childcare, the basics for families.
And that's 4 years ago. Imagine 4 years ago. Where
everything's gone up. Everything's gone up. But at that time, for a single adult, it was $14.57 an hour. So that's more than double. Yes.
Yeah.
We're at half. So even if you were working 2 full-time minimum wage jobs, you would just barely be at the calculated living wage, which does not include anything like, when your car breaks down or those, extra things that come up in life that you have to take care of.
How do we get there in America? How do we get to a point where our minimum wage is half of what you need to even pay your bills?
Well, I think ignoring it for decades and not making any incremental increases along with cost of living is a big mistake. I mean, now we're looking at the place where, we're less than half of where we need to be. We've seen in some places that have big jumps in their minimum wage that it's not always smooth implementation, right? Corporations can decide what they want, how they're going to manage that.
The
right?
rise of CEO pay compared to other countries, especially in the U.S., it could be 500 times more than the average employees, the average in America. Whereas in other countries, it's capped out at 25 times or 20 times the average pay of the basic employee.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to blame it on Wall Street. That's the easy answer, right?
Well, it's a problem though, like Teuvo, when you say we're going to give tax breaks, for example, to corporations, and then you assume that those tax break dollars are going to get passed down to the employees. Hell no. That's not what's going to happen. That CEO's salary is going to go up even more. I would love to think that the needs of the employees and that money would be directly trickled down, but that's not.
There's no data for that, but there's still a party that sings that from the mountaintops.
Well, we're about to repeat history here with that.
There's something interesting with. So Walmart is a large employer of minimum wage jobs all across the country, and we have one up north near Hayden. And for every Walmart in a community, it costs on average $172 million in food stamps and government subsidies, government support of the employees because the company won't pay them a livable wage.
Right. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are missing that are so anti kind of federal government regulation is that oftentimes those costs get passed along to our local taxpayers in different ways, with the cost of food the cost the state incurs to provide things like food stamps, or with healthcare, those costs are passed on through county indigent funds or the catastrophic healthcare program that's a state funded taxpayer program in Idaho. So
we end up paying
still
for
pay.
it, right?
We still pay.
So people that are against any new regulations or against raising the minimum wage, they are still end up paying it for it anyways out of their own pockets.
So to boil it down, our tax dollars are paying the employees essentially kind of their wage because Walmart won't do it, or companies like that.
Right, and it's ironic that it's propped up by a political party who tells the people this is bad, but it's they're then paying for that. It's all backwards.
Absolutely. They tell them that it's bad, and they also make the people feel bad, or there's this conception that the people that are living in poverty are lazy, or this is not the case.
Right.
This is not the case. Yeah.
So it's a misinformation campaign. I mean, I think we're all
on
aware.
A grand scale.
Oh my God. I mean, geez, let's go down that rabbit hole, right?
It's a deep one.
Fake news and all that. Donald Trump created fake news, by the way. That's something he came up with.
He's created a lot of things.
I think we're at 2,000 false statements or lies now.
Yep.
How can you? I mean,
in a year.
That's almost vast
impressive.
underestimation.
On the highest podium essentially in the country or even the world almost.
So I want to talk. You're running to take Luke Malik's job. Luke Malik is a lawyer from Coeur d'Alene, a younger guy-ish, who has held the state seat here for 2 terms now. The local Republican Party likes to call him a rhino, Republican in name only, because he's, a little teeny bit progressive in a couple of areas, right? Like he believes teachers, deserve to be paid a decent wage, and he believes that gay people shouldn't be thrown in prison and stuff like that.
That's nice.
Yeah, so but
does he want a participation trophy?
Right. He also believes that global warming, this is a quote, is largely caused from volcanoes.
They are very hot. That's a fact.
Super hot. They'll burn you.
Oh my God.
So my question is wanting to come in behind Malik and totally shift the leadership for that role in District 4 here, and what we've been hearing. Luke Malik was part of helping pass legislation that wouldn't allow local cities to raise their minimum wage. How are we going to get that repealed?
Well, yeah, we got to start by getting some new leadership, first of all, because, his attitude about things like, he does have an interesting voting record. He is pretty moderate on some things, but there are other areas where we definitely disagree. Like, he wouldn't sign the Medicaid expansion,
but his mom did.
His mom did. His mom did.
Shout out Luke Malik's mom.
Ooh, I
We
like
love
her.
you.
I know. She's great.
Thanks, Miss Malik.
Let's get coffee.
Have her on the show.
I guess the way that I'm going to be different is pretty much in every way. I am progressive, and I am progressive in my values, and that's what I'm going to bring to the type of legislation that I'm going to introduce. I have no intentions of going in there, and you guys know I'm kind of loud. And I want to go in to make some changes.
That's what we need, though.
Right. Idaho has been in so many metrics, like education, socioeconomics. We are moving lower and lower and lower and lower. And in things like education, now we're duking it out for dead last. We're like 47th in the nation in terms of sending kids on to higher education. Yeah. Right now, in Luke Malik's town hall, he and Amador were discussing education. And all they could talk about was how they were going to save an extra like $5 per child by not maybe paying for the SAT for Idaho high school, graduating seniors to not be able to take the SAT. And I just think that that's really backward, that instead of focusing on why are we 47th in the nation and how can we improve that, they're still so stuck on how can we save an extra couple of pennies on our kids, on the backs of our kids in Idaho.
That's insane. Like literally the future of the workforce and society, and you're not investing in them.
Right. It just seems extremely short-sighted to me.
Definitely.
Oh,
so
saving pennies now, and
I don't think I'm going to have
Idaho.
any trouble painting the contrast between Malik and myself.
Yeah, and I really see that as key. I really see painting the contrast as especially Medicaid. I just think that that's a winner.
Well, and with the Medicaid expansion petition, what really bothered me was that I wasn't asking Mr. Malik to vote for Medicaid expansion.
Right.
I was asking him if he respected his constituents enough to give them a voice on how they want to spend their own tax dollars, and he said no. That was shocking to me. That
is shocking.
That he's like, you elected me to represent you, so now I make decisions for you.
Yeah.
That's wrong. That feels wrong to me.
But that is literally the white male patriarchy that has taken the state to dead last, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a failed.
Yeah, that's
it's
why-
a failed experiment on a grand scale.
Right. It's a masculine white American ideology, right? Like, we don't want to hear the women talk. We don't want to hear the minorities talk. We don't want to hear all the concerns of the poor people talk.
Right.
We got it figured out. We own the ranches and the mines and the oil and the things. We're going to take care of it. Don't come and question
And
us.
how's
what's
that going
on.
for you, Idaho?
It's going shitty.
I think that Idaho sees that, right? I think that
Yeah.
that's why now
Maybe finally just
Idaho
now,
is
recently.
ready, for a different voice. I think that I honestly have always, in my advocacy work, operated in like a nonpartisan space, and I refuse to have Idaho's future like boiled down to a D or an R by your name. Like, we need leaders. We need authentic leaders that care about the state to step up.
Well, progressive policies and the platform reaches across party lines and draws in people from all creeds.
Absolutely. And
statistically too, it does.
Definitely,
data.
The more I talk to people, I mean, I'm born and raised in Idaho. I know that we have more in common than we have, our differences,
more
of
unites
course.
us than divides us.
Absolutely. At the heart of it, when you get down to, I talk to so many of my conversations are with Republicans. My entire family is Republican, right? But when we talk about what we want out of life, I mean, it's the same. And when I ask them, okay, like, what do you believe? Do you believe people that whoever should be able to get married if they love each other? Do you believe that we should take care of the children that need health care in our state? Do you believe, I hate to break it to you, but like, we agree on all of those things.
Guess what? You're a Democrat.
Yeah, guess what? Sorry, Dad. But that's why I think that it's so important to just cut through all the bullshit and get directly to people. Like,
definitely.
I don't want to go through all these filters. I want people to feel my authenticity and feel that I care about Idaho and that I'm not for sale.
Which is awesome.
Thank you for that. Thank you for not being for sale. Because I ain't got the money to buy
it. Got my time. That's
well,
about
I
it.
just paid off my student loan, so I've got a little bit more money than I used to.
Oh,
but
nice.
still, not much.
Okay, well, I want to ask you a couple kind of like shotgun questions. I'm just going to shoot them at you and give me some just short answers.
Hit me.
So the first one, you can give me a little bit longer answer because it's really one that's dear to my heart. On all these things we talk about as far as people needing better health care, and we needed to raise the minimum wage, pay for people to go to college, pay, teachers more. Those all require resources. They require dollars. They require funds. When we go and we talk, when I'm in the town halls and I ask these questions of Luke Malik or, we ask them of Raul Labrador, they have their reasons why raising taxes will hurt business industry, cause people not to come here. That is what they say. What do you feel? How are we going to generate the resources we need to do these things? Are we going to do it through taxes? If so, do you have any ideas of where? What are your thoughts about how we can start slowly moving in a direction where we have the resources to take care of people the way we think they deserve to be taken care of?
Right. So this is a complex question, but I'll give like two main points, I guess.
All right.
Number one, I think it isn't so much about generating new, but prioritizing what is important to us and where we want to spend that money. Transparency is a huge problem in Idaho. And when independent organizations like evaluate our state legislature, we get straight up Fs in like transparency and ethics oversight, for example. So I think it's really important, first of all, that we know what we are already paying. Mm-hmm. Like we need to know exactly where that's going right now.
Right. Yeah, show me the numbers.
And then we need to take a look at that and see if that accurately represents our priorities. Like, should giving tax breaks to huge corporations, for example, come before funding healthcare for children in our state? Hell no.
No.
No, that's an easy one for me. And in my experience with advocacy, I learned one year in 2009, I believe it was, the Idaho state legislature had a bill before them that they were considering that would eliminate a copay assistance program for adults with cystic fibrosis in the state. That program had a $200,000 budget. And, that they gave the fiscal argument. That was, that's a drop in the bucket of the state's budget, first of all. But, they made their argument. That same legislative session, another bill was proposed to create like a legal slush fund for legislators that found themselves in lawsuits of all kinds, sexual harassment cases and they get DUIs and whatever. And it had the same exact budget as the CF budget that they cut,
$200,000. So to clarify, using tax dollars to pay off lawsuits.
Yeah. I mean, they find themselves in legal issues frequently, it turns out, Alex. And so that was a huge, representative example to me of what is wrong. Like, what is wrong?
That is deeply disturbing.
That does not represent my priorities and my values.
Feels like no one's paying attention when stuff like that's happening.
Exactly.
Not.
Right. So number one is reprioritizing. Number two, I think that, like what happened recently with our tax reform legislation, this is the opposite direction that we need to go in. We have some of the, highest, the richest people in our country that are speaking out about how they want to, that they don't need an extra $30 million from this new loophole that now exists for them in the tax reform legislation. They want, I think, that upper crust of our society that's making that, that represents that 1%.
Yeah.
They absolutely need to pay more.
Definitely.
They need to pay more. Yeah. And they, I think that a lot of them want to pay, they want to give back and feel like, at a certain point when you have that much money, do you really need millions more every year in tax breaks? It doesn't make sense to me.
So why don't people say that? I mean, when I participate in the Democratic Party locally, no one ever says we need to raise taxes on the rich.
Talking about raising
and Bernie
those
said
two
it,
words,
and guess what? Yeah. People loved him.
Well, I agree. I mean, I think that raising taxes on our upper earners, that is a fact that we need to just be able to digest and see that this is a way to, with the tax reform now giving all those breaks to the richest in our society and to those huge corporations. Now we're facing the point that we're going to see the impact of that, because now we're looking at programs for the next year and budget for the next year and potential government shutdown. And how then are we going to absorb that lost revenue? That's going to come down to cuts in social programs, and that is going to hurt.
The people are going to feel the burden of that.
The people are going to hurt. That's right.
Yeah. All right, wonderful. So I was going to ask you also, what happens if you don't get elected?
Yeah. What happens if I don't get elected? I keep doing the same thing. I mean, what I'm doing
round
now...
Round of applause. Yay.
What I'm doing right now really feels pretty similar to what I've already been doing in Idaho for many years, trying to interact with my community, trying to influence policy, trying to make things better. I've definitely shifted my strategy, but I know that this running for office to change our leadership and telling my story and getting my voice out there, this is so much more constructive. And I would rather run and lose for the next 10 years than continue banging my head against this wall with our current leadership in Idaho.
At least someone's bringing up the issues and trying to hold someone accountable. I think that's the first step, if nothing else.
Absolutely. I'm really motivated though by, I'm no hero. I happen to have this child that has these, extraordinary needs, and I happen to have had this experience with our lawmakers. So this is just the hand that I was dealt, and I don't feel like I have much of a choice. I'm going to do this and I'm going to win. So don't worry about what happens if I lose, Teuvo.
Damn straight.
Fair enough. That was still the correct answer, though.
But it's true. Sorting out the truth from what is not true. There's so much out there. And, our access is a gift in a lot of ways. Yeah. But it's also, it can be a weapon, right? I mean, that much power used in the wrong way. This is new territory, though. Learning how to monitor, like Facebook, for example, for fake news. We better learn how. Better learn how.
Yeah, we need well-funded, organizations. I mean, when I got involved with the Democrats locally, I mean, I am just shocked by our budget, and I understand
it's so tiny.
It's so tiny, and there isn't any spending any money is scary to them, and it really, we have to look at that. And I understand that it takes volunteers to make an organization work. Yeah. But when you look at these organizations like the Idaho Freedom Foundation, they are only able to do that because they're funded.
They got plenty of money.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we, in the next couple of years, need to set a goal to try to, and we know people with money locally, we need to figure out how to set a plan to start to combat that stuff. And I hope the Democratic Party down in Boise gets its stuff together. They've been having some leadership changes, but I'm really thankful, Rebecca, that you're someone that's getting the conversation started.
I'm going to connect us, Teuvo. I mean, I am going to connect Coeur d'Alene, and I'm going to connect all these people that have resources, either in terms of money or their time and expertise, we got to come together on this. And I think it's time.
You be the first one. No one's done it before here.
But why not?
Why not
I'm
now?
ready. I'm ready to
Yeah.
jump. I'm from Kuski. Like,
Scrappy.
I'm pretty brave. I'm scrappy. Yeah. And being from Kuski, I feel like I should be able to talk to anybody. I couldn't get away with anything in Kuski
bet
without
not.
like 10 people calling my mom,
So being a progressive person, has anyone told you to go back to California yet?
Oh yeah. At the town hall, I was actually accused of not even being American.
Wow.
A reporter that was there was just convinced that I was Canadian, or he asked me if I had
plant.
right, exactly. I had like a paid protester. It's like, no.
Yeah, I told someone I was from Finland or something, and they thought I had like moved here, and they're like, "You must have an agenda. You moved here with an agenda to change Idaho." And I was like,
Well,
"No, I was born."
Go back to where you
in
came
Coeur d'Alene.
from. Jeez.
Yeah, the influx though of individuals, some of the individuals like the Redoubt movement from California and other areas, that really has begun to change Idaho in scary ways.
Side note, another episode.
Right,
But yeah,
yeah.
we'll dive into
Yeah.
that.
I'm not from California though, no, and I can prove it. I have my birth certificate.
Wonderful. Well, I think wrapping up, I'm just going to give you a chance to just speak to your constituents in here in Coeur d'Alene and just tell them, how they can help you, and what you're going to do for them, and when they can where they can get in touch with you, and what's coming up.
Right, yeah. So my website is up and running. It's RebeccaForIdaho.com, and there you can find an event calendar, contact information. I am going to be doing my best to just, like I said, put myself out there in Coeur d'Alene. I want to be available. I want to be talking to local groups like teachers and organizations that work to make this a better place. I want to connect us all. The issue, I think, and one thing that I really learned about the grassroots work that I've done with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation is the value of collaboration.
Yeah.
We got to be rowing together, right? I think we all want similar goals, but we're wasting energy if we're not talking to each other. So I'm going to be talking to people. When the snow clears, I'm going to be going door to door. But I'm focused right now on fundraising. So I'm having a nice house party schedule that I'm getting set up. So that's a really fun thing that actually is super personal. If you have a space in your home and you'd like to hear more about what I'm all about, house parties are like some chairs, like some cheese and crackers, couple bottles of wine, boom, house party. Invite over, your coworkers or whoever. Yeah. Give me, maybe you don't have the resources to write me a check. Maybe just introduce me to some of your friends,
We'll take your time as well.
Exactly. That's right. And I'm learning as I go along. Running a campaign requires so many different things. And those things are like, we'll be door knocking, we'll be registering voters, we'll be having events. And if you feel like there's another area there that you could donate your time or your expertise, or maybe just give me your opinion. I'm all about taking feedback about what is important to you, like what are the issues that are on your mind. I want to be a representative for the people. So I need to hear from the people and feel like I have a good sense of what's important to them. So, we're going to be doing a lot with social media as well. We're producing a lot of content. I'm going to be talking hopefully with you guys again down the road.
Love to have you on again.
Definitely.
And so I guess just reach out to me in an email or, any way you think that you might be able to offer your time or expertise. I will put you to work. I need all the help that I can get. I realize
I
need an army. This is an uphill battle here, but I think that the silver lining is this huge progressive wave that is building without a doubt. The energy is undeniable. Mm-hmm. We're going to change things.
Bernie Sanders proved you can run a grassroots small donations campaign and almost win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to raise money. I have no doubt about that. We're going to raise money.
From the people.
What's more important to me is that we have it come from the right sources. I'm not going to be accepting cash from people who want to buy my position on some policy. That's not what I'm about. So
as an average Joe, what does it take to contribute to your campaign? Like, how much do I need to give?
like, what's your coffee habit a day cost you, Alex?
$3.
$3 is a great donation.
Day.
Any size
Every day,
donation. I mean, I want you to, it all adds up in the end. So I want to do it, whatever feels doable for you, baby steps. Maybe you give me $3 today. Maybe next month you give me another $3.
Yeah. I mean, you can set up recurring donations on ActBlue to be like $1 a month. I mean, that's more than we had before.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's an important one, guys. If you do donate, think about doing a recurring donation.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
We want to use that money to, some of the projects we're looking at are like making videos to tell other healthcare stories in Idaho. We want to reinvest what we make to really dig in and make some big changes.
Just expand the dialogue.
Absolutely. And we're being as frugal as we can with our campaign budget because we're not fancy. This is all going to go back into media and things that we're going to use to make Idaho a better place.
Got to reach more people.
That's right.
Wonderful. Alex, got any follow-up questions?
That's all I got.
Well, Rebecca, I just want to say personally thank you. And we are excited to have a true progressive running for the state house.
Cue applause again.
All right. Thanks, Teuvo, Alex.
All right,
Appreciate
guys,
you guys.
we're out. Have a good weekend.
We out.